Welcome to Coaching in Session,
where limits end and growth begins.
Hosted by Michael Rearden.
This is your space to challenge the ordinary,
unlock your potential,
and step boldly into your next chapter.
Your mindset journey continues.
In our day, we are going to be inundated by so many different things, from our smartphones to our TV programming to possibly a movie that is coming out that maybe we are excited to go see, from our friends, our family, our co-workers, and maybe even just simply wanting to be out in nature. There are so many possibilities in what we can do in a given day. However, we only have 24 hours in a given day. There is no one in the world who gets more. I understand there are people who can play with a time zone game and they can say, oh, I'm going to party here and then I'm going to fly over here and I'm going to have 3 or 4 extra hours in my day. I understand this way of thinking, but the reality is humans, at least, operate on that 24-hour cycle where we can easily say this is what you need in a given day. We can say you need to work 8 hours, you need to sleep 8 hours, and that's going to leave us with 8 hours more. Of course, we go to the gym for an hour or two. We might spend time with the family. Let's say we spend 2 hours with them. So that means we have 4 hours to ourselves to do what we want with. And I'm sure if you go on your smartphone right now and you look at your usage data and you look at your apps that you've been on in the past day or maybe even just the past week, we can easily accumulate over that 4-hour mark. So this is to say that a large amount of our time is going to be going to things that possibly one day we won't even remember. Things that at one time possibly could have maybe brought us some joy, maybe some pleasure for a moment or two. But the long-lasting stuff, like the things that matter the most, if we can focus on them, imagine where our life could be. And today is going to be that. Today, we're going to focus on what matters the most. Possibly yourself, if you're by yourself, maybe your family, if you're family orientated, maybe your work, if you are an entrepreneur and you're extremely driven. It doesn't matter where your focus is. What matters is that you understand what you're doing matters. Because let's touch all the realms, I think touching all the realms are going to be important. Let's start with work. Work is going to be an easy thing to understand. We spend a good portion of our life at work, and what most people do with their 40 hours at work is lament it. Lament means that they are not happy with what is happening there, right? They are dreading Mondays, they're looking for Fridays, they're just not joyous to be there. Even though you might make good money, even though you might have some level of meaning and significance, it's something where if you didn't have to do it, would you? And this is the $1 million question. What would you do if you had the gambit? You could do whatever you wanted. You can be whatever you wanted. There was no limits and you can just do that one thing, right? Forever. And you got paid really good for it. What would that be? Maybe you said, I want to be a doctor. I want to, sell paintings or whatever, right? You can make a living out of anything. We can see that with streamers, right? People who have podcasts, things like that. They are doing it where most people back in the day, if we think about 40s, 50s, and 60s, they would have never thought that this could be a lifestyle for somebody. It was all go to work a 9 to 5, find a company that's going to take care of you and you take care of the company. Now we are in a different mindset today. We have so many options. So it is challenging for us to focus on something if we don't even know what to focus on. Should I focus on this career? Should I focus on that career? This is my passion. I'm passionate about this. This is what I'm good at. This is what I'm talented and gifted in. So it's a lot of different things because they talk about your talent or your gift, the thing that you're meant to do in the world. They talk about how you should be able to do it for free and you just love it. You can do it all day. It doesn't matter. Rightfully so. I'm sure people would do it if they didn't have obligations, if they didn't have family, if they didn't have bills. they would be all gung ho about living this carefree, pragmatic, full life. But what happens in our career is that we get so caught up. We focus on our due dates for our job, our presentations, or meeting with clients, or closing big contracts. Those are going to inundate us in our days. Now, we focus on those things, but when we focus on those things, can we truly experience what the workplace has to offer? Now, of course, we understand that there's some facilities, some workplaces that do a good job at balancing the work life, where the work is balanced to the life that is the culture of the company. And you have to have a good balance there, because if you're just spinning on all of your cylinders, on all of your wheels, on all the engines, you're going to find yourself burned out before you even start it. What needs to happen is, if we can focus on the things that matter the most at a workplace, then you can possibly come out each day more invigorated than you have walked into the facility. Now, this can mean that if I'm going into work, I'm going to focus on my projects that maybe I find some meaning in. Maybe you are focusing on culture that day, or the company is big on culture. So you're looking at meeting a new person or being more social at lunchtime. You can be more focused on your own personal development in the workplace, where it's not just about the work that you're doing, it's about the work that you can be doing. So you're seeking advice from people who are higher up, getting mentorship. I mean, we can focus on quite a bit of things, but you have to ask yourself, will it matter in the end? Because we know what a workplace can be, especially if it's not your company. You can fire yourself from your company. Yes, that's a possibility. But most people, when they're working for a company or for somebody, they are operating under the beckoning of this individual to not lose their mind, or to be mature, or make sure that they have enough funds to meet payroll. It's a challenging thing, because we're not focused on that. We're just focused on our things, and we're focused on our problems as well. Because we might say, oh, we didn't get a raise in 1 year, and we don't have as many snacks in the conference room as we used to back when I first started. We can focus on those little problems. But when we're starting to look at this as a bigger picture, the career as a bigger picture, what matters the most when you go into that facility? Possibly you work for a company that is working with individuals, and you make sure that the individuals are taken care of. That's what matters the most. It could matter the most, at least. Because if you say that I'm coming into this place to make sure that these people are taken care of, then you have done good at that workplace that day. But if you're focusing on your phone at the clock, waiting for the time to be up, we have lost an opportunity to focus in our career space. Now, there's many different avenues that we can walk down in our career space. And I'm going to leave that up to you to ask the question, to bring up the mindset, to inquire about, where are you in your workspace? Are you in a place where you're happy, you feel fulfilled, and that when Monday comes, you're not dreading it, and when Friday comes, you're also in the mindset of, man, that was a fun week. I'm going to enjoy this weekend, but next week, I'm going to hit the ground running. We have a lot of work to do, and I'm looking forward to it. Now, this is a mindset, right? A far stretch, because you might say, oh man, I got to do a whole nother week. But I remember when I was a teacher, when Friday happened, yeah, cool Friday. I knew I had a couple of days off. I can sleep in if I wanted to. I was always looking forward to my hikes, because I will always go on hikes on the weekend with my dog. And I basically knew that those 2 days will go as quick as Monday through Friday did for me. And when Monday comes around, smiles going into work, getting ready for what we had to do. Now, there was times in the year when I was like, man, this is not fun. Around the Christmas time and holiday time, you would think It's the most wonderful time of the year. Oh man, it's a lot of problems. It was a lot of work during that time, but it was rewarding, especially when everything is done and you could just sit back and say, wow, we did a good job. It was a lot of prep to get there, but we did a good job. Now, I'm sure the same with most companies working on contracts, getting big clients. It's not just overnight success. It takes time for things to happen. So we focus on the things that matter, and we also focus on the things that need to get done. During the Christmas times or the holiday times, I had to look at what needed to get done because time was my enemy. We only have 24 hours in a day. And I knew that if I didn't maximize my time that I was there at the school with the children, we would have a performance or we would basically be less than what I knew we were capable of. And I'm sure people know themselves. You don't have to admit it to me or anything, but you can ask yourself this question. Am I giving 100% of what I got? Most people, they're not giving anywhere near to that. They might be in the 40% range, maybe a little bit less, a little bit more. But I mean, that's where people reside. They stay around that marker. And some days when they feel really good, they're maybe in the 60 range. Those people who are in the top 100 range and doing all the things that matter the most in a given day, they make great strides. Now, I heard something great, and this is a quote that's a well-known quote. They say, if you are persistent, you'll get it. But if you're consistent, you'll keep it. We can look at all the aspects of our workplace where we are persistent for something. We're persistent on the work in the beginning to get a raise, to get promoted, etc. But then at some point, people will hit a ceiling. They will hit a plateau and they'll say, yeah, I went as far as I thought I wanted to go. So then that's where they stay. And then at that point, that's when people say they're not fulfilled, but yet they're making good money. Yet they are maybe really good at their job, but their focus is astray. Their focus is not on what matters. It's simply what has gotten them there to keep them there. So what matters at that time is maybe I have to do this to keep my job versus I'm doing this because I love my job. What type of mindset matters the most to you? Maybe you just want to have a job to say you do. Some people don't have jobs and they want jobs, and some people have jobs that they don't want. So it's almost like we are hurting ourselves because we don't know any better. And for the people who know better, who are staying in the same space, it's possibly due to fear, due to possibly a lack of knowledge, or maybe it's an insecurity deep down that's rooted in your past. There are many different things that could be going on. But in order to focus on your career, you need to be able to focus on your life as well. Now, this goes into a multifaceted thing because life is going to be possibly you by yourself, or it could be your family. Now, family, I believe, is one of the easiest things to understand. If you have a partner, you have children, parents, siblings, cousins, aunts, uncles, etc. You have people, right? Grandmas, grandpas. You have people that possibly you grew up with, that you created a bond with, and that you care for, right? You know that they matter. I remember when my great grandmother, she was alive, and I was in college, and I know everyone was working and people were busy, but we always had someone who was able to watch her because she lived by herself essentially. But we lived in a duplex and my aunt had lived next door. So they were always checking on each other, and it was a good relationship, really good family bond there. And so we would always commune at my grandmother's house after school, after work. That's where we went. And my grandmother, until she was like 87 or something, maybe a little bit more, she would cook. She cooked Sunday through Thursday. And we basically had pizza on Fridays. It was like pizza day. Like Friday was pizza day. And then Saturday, we basically just figured it out, right? Whatever we did, we did. So she worked 5 days a week, similar to what most people do. But her job was feeding people, right? She just wanted to feed people. She didn't care who it was. She wanted to feed somebody. Oh, you must be hungry. Come in and get something to eat, right? She would feed someone until the point there was no more food left. We would come to the house and then there was nothing, right? There's some rice or something. We're just like, oh, okay, I guess this is what we got today, right? But then we prepared better. We said, oh, if she's this type of person who's feeding everybody, possibly we need more food, right? So we just created this environment where if you're hungry, you come eat. This is the place to come to. It was one of the things that we loved. For her, cooking what was her calling. And I'm sure there was days where she basically woke up, was like, oh, I don't feel like cooking today. I'm just not feeling good. Like I got to cook every single day and no one appreciates it. But she had a passion for it because she knew that if we were full, if we were fed, if we were taken care of, then she was happy, right? That was her focus. That's what mattered the most to her. And I remember one of our focuses when she got older, she didn't cook as much. And my grandmother had started to cook. Her daughter had started to cook more for the family to kind of take the reins, to take over the wheel. But it wasn't the same. It wasn't the same. Not saying she was a bad cook, but it was more so of she was doing it because of the environment that was created. My great grandmother, she did it because that was her passion. That was her love. My great grandma, she would again feed everybody. My grandmother, she would feed some people, right? Of course, they went to the same church. They had very similar mindsets, but my grandma was more about work. She was, she had a lot of passion. She loved to travel. So there was this two different people. So her focus was different. And when she had to take over someone else's focus, then that's when you can tell like she was becoming overburdened because she was like, I got to do this and I still want to do what I want to do. There was a sacrifice. But then we started to change something. We changed our mindsets. Not so much of, well, she used to do this and now we have to do this, so we're stuck with her job. We started to focus on what matters the most. It was her. It was my great grandmother. We focused on the opportunities we were given because of that. I'm not sure if anyone has been hungry who is listening to this podcast, but I'm not talking about like you feel hunger, where your brain is saying, hey, you're hungry, you should go eat something. I'm talking about where you are literally famished. You are thinking about going into the dumpsters to get food, like you are starving. You truly, you're hungry. And some people, they have experienced that. Some people, they haven't. And when people do have food and they have abundance, it's hard to focus on that as something meaningful because it's there. Have you ever focused on your lover, like your partner, and said, hey, like, I love you. Like, oh my God, you're the best. Yeah, sure. On Valentine's Day, maybe Christmas or on their birthday. But that kind of goes away with the butterflies at the beginning of the relationship. At some point, it just becomes another person. But for us, we said our great grandmother matters. And so we would love to go over there, watch movies with her, watch HGTV with her, just commune, right? Just to talk, right? Just to be present with her. Of course, some days it was a burden, but it was a burden I think most of us were delighted to take on. For me, I would come home from either work or college. And then when I graduated from school and my friends had owned a restaurant around the corner, it was Puerto Rican food. And if she didn't have any food, I would go get her some food. And I remember, just taking, her food sometimes. And sometimes I'll buy her a donut. And she loves sweets. And it's probably where I got my sweet tooth from, is from her. She loves sweets. She would eat a whole donut and she would look at you like, that donut was good. Like, can I get another one? And I'm like, no, you can't. You can't get another donut. Even though she had a sweet tooth, we knew we had to, limit her sweets. We would always, get her something nice every now and again. Well deserved, I think, if you've been providing for the family for so long, and we want to make sure that you're well and that you're doing good, for us to do something nice for you. And I can't imagine how many parents now shifting just the focus, just mildly, just ever so slightly, where a mom and a dad, they'll look at their kids. Maybe they look at what they had when they were growing up and they said, man, we didn't have this growing up. I want to make sure my kids have this. Screen time, don't worry about it. Take as much as you need. Candy, I'm going to allow that to be in our pantry and you go and get it as much as you want. Sure, right? When I was young, I just dreamed of the day when I was an adult where I could say, I'm going to go to the store, I'm going to go to the bakery, and I'm going to buy some cakes, and I'm going to buy some ice creams, and I'm going to buy some candies, and I'm just going to eat it all, and I'm just going to not care. And sure enough, you get a little bit wiser, and you learn that as much as that could have been a good idea when you were younger, it's not a good idea when you're an adult. So I said, I'm not going to focus on that anymore. I'm going to focus on being healthy, right? I'm focusing on the things that matter the most, right? At the time, the candy mattered. My work might have mattered a little bit. My family mattered, right? What has dissipated in the past 5 years from your life? Like what mattered at one point that now doesn't matter? Okay. This is how you can tell and how you can focus on what truly matters. There's always going to be a different season of your life. Some seasons you're going to be truly focused on. Possibly parenting can be a big one. You're focused on that season. But I will tell you this much, people, one day they go away. Your kids, they're just your children, right? The people you helped bring into this world, people you cared for. Maybe one day they stop calling you, right? Daddy or mommy, mom, dad. Maybe they'll even start calling you by your government if you start acting up or something, right? It's truly a eye-opening experience. Parenting is. But the same thing can happen in every walk of your life. Think of series like I started watching Walking Dead back, I guess I was in high school or maybe college when it came out. And I remember watching like the first season, the second season. I think I stopped on the third season. And I was like, this is going to take forever. Like, this is too much. Yeah, sure, it was cool. It was fun. But I knew that focus one day would be dead. I said, I'm not going to focus on this forever. I don't want to just be led on a string all my life, like a horse and a carrot. I said, I want to focus on things that matter. So I want to use my time appropriately. Now, I don't mind giving my time to waste. If I want to go on my phone, if I want to scroll, I do it, but I don't do it to an extent where I'm wasting hours a day. Now, if you have a favorite show or type of series that you can mini indulge in, then go for it. For example, you go to Costco or you go to Sam's Club. You can go buy some candy or buy some cake, right? And there's typically big packets, right? Sometimes you can say, I'm just going to have one today. And some days that one turned into the whole pack, the whole bottle, the whole sleeve, right? The whole thing. What now needs to happen is we might say we did such a bad job at taking care of prioritizing where we just said F it and we ate a whole bag of cookies or whatever, a whole box of cookies. And now our priority, our focus is a little bit different. Oh, we got to focus on the gym, right? We got to focus on being healthy again, right? Because we were so bad. So many people are yo-yo about life. They focus on things for a little bit and then they lose focus and then they bring it back for a little bit. Imagine if you were in a relationship, and you might be in a relationship that is like that, and you might be laughing, where it's like, man, like I focused on them and I'd stop focusing on them. And this is where like people get divorced, right? Like you are getting divorced because you feel as if this person is basically in a different world than you now, right? You were walking on the same path together and all of a sudden one went left, one went right, And I'm not talking about politics. I'm just talking about life, where there was no communication, there's no bond. The bond is now broken or it is just deteriorated. And you basically are like, well, it's easier to throw something out that's broken than it is to fix it. So bringing focus can save you so many worlds. It can save you so many problems. It can bring about so many blessings as well. From looking at our family to the opportunities to the privilege to the reward, all of these different things can help us see what truly matters the most, that focus. And you can say that every season is going to have a new focus, but when you are in this mindset of looking at what really matters or what you should focus on, you need to be able to maybe ask a simple question, I believe. What is going to have the most impact today? Because maybe it's going to be, I want to spend time with my kids. Maybe it's, I want to go to this conference so I can get some new clients, right? Because you might need new clients. You might say, I'm going to go to the gym today and I'm going to work out. And we all know that working out is not going to be an instant fix, right? We know that. But maybe it creates the mindset that you needed for today to make the calls after you got out of the gym, right? You feel more confident, you felt more brave, and you started to do what you might have been procrastinating. This is all to say that there's going to be many different things in this life that we can focus on. And at a given time, we might focus on something for so long where we forget what it is not to focus on that. I mean, 18 years of focusing on your kids, that's a long time, where you are making them your world and one day you're just a part of their world. Of course, we can create the mindsets and we can create the culture and the family and say, hey, family doesn't do that and we stick together. Sure, that works. It's helpful. But there's always going to be some lag behind that. The same thing is true in your career. You might say that we are this company and we are doing this, but the thing about companies is that they have to adjust with what the world is saying. The family doesn't have to do that. The company has to evolve. For example, there's so much AI in the world today. If a company doesn't adapt to what AI is or where the world is going, the company is going to get left behind. We have seen that with Kodak, where they didn't want to step into the digital world, and that's where the world was going. So we do have to see where the world is going. We have to basically understand what's in our backpack. And I want you just to figuratively think of a backpack. And let's say you want to go hiking. Maybe you don't like walking or hiking, but let's say you're going somewhere. You can go on a trip, you go hiking, you can go to the office, to park, wherever you want to go, right? You get to choose where you want to go. You want to go to the park with your friends, your buddies, to the drink, you want to go to the bar with your guys, whatever, or the club with your girls, doesn't matter, right? You have a backpack. Now, this backpack can hold as much things as you want. But every single time you add something to that backpack, it gets heavier. And not just a little bit, not like a lip gloss, some chopstick, a fork. I don't know why you need a fork, but you brought a fork and you just say, it's not heavy, right? These items are not heavy. Of course, they could be bulky, but they're not heavy. A blanket, right? It's not heavy, but it's bulky. Now you're filling this backpack. You're just filling it, and you're filling it possibly with things that you thought were light, and eventually that weight started to add up. Possibly, maybe you didn't even worry about the weight. You just said, I want the best of the best, right? So you have things that are a little bit more heavier, right? And you now have this backpack with maybe not as many things, but it's still heavy. It doesn't matter if you have a bunch of little things or if you have less things that weigh more. That backpack is still going to get heavy at some point. Now, you might pick up this backpack. You say, whoa, this is pretty heavy. This is hefty. And you start walking with it. At some point, feel your shoulder is getting a little sore. So you switch shoulders. Or eventually, this gets sore. So you put it on both shoulders. both shoulders are sore now. So you grab it with your hands and you're holding it and you're leaning forward and you're trying to carry everything that you thought you needed. But if you took that backpack and you placed it on the floor and you opened it up, at that point, you'll start to see all the things that don't matter. Wow, right? All the things that are heavy, that are burdened, that you're like, why am I carrying this around anymore? Get rid of it. So what is your backpack holding today? What do you have in your life that's just weighing you down? Of course, there's going to be seasons when you have to have the diaper bags. You have to have the diapers. You have to have a change of clothes. You have to have the sippy cups. You have to have a towel, a bathing suit for your kids if they want to go into the splash pads. That's the essentials at that point, that season, that year, right? That age group. But at some point, you don't need it anymore. So you don't have to carry it around anymore. And the same thing is with negative thoughts, negative ideas, limiting beliefs. Maybe at some point they helped you. Maybe at some point they had some level of meaning. They brought about some significance. But then at some point, they just become a distraction. They just become something that you don't need anymore, that you might be carrying around still. So if you feel as if you are not focusing on the things that matter, if you're not focusing on your family or your workplace or your life, I mean, this is an opportunity for you to figure out, what do you want to pack in your bag? What do you want your mindset to hold, your mind to hold? What do you want to think about continually and consciously? And then what do you want your subconscious to think about when you're just kind of on cruise control? Of course, we're all going to have days where we make a mistake. Possibly days when we lose focus on the things that matter. But we don't make it a lifestyle. We make it a moment. So that moment doesn't define who we are in our entirety. You can have a bad week. You can have, heck, maybe even a bad year. But in order to not have a bad life, we need to adjust quickly. And the focus needs to be there. So if you're having a hard time on focusing what matters, maybe you feel as if your career is not there, your personal life is not there, or maybe even that your family is not there quite yet. I encourage you to reach out to us, revenconcepts.com, get yourself a consultation, figure out what's going on in your life, and possibly come up with some ideas and some solutions where you can begin to focus on the things that matter the most. Because if I know anything now from all of my years alive, life moves quickly. And when you're at the end of it, you're going to wonder where it all went. So don't get to that crossroad later down in life and be one of those individuals who want more time, but they ran out of it.